Hello again, everybody, and welcome to the Saints Insider Podcast. Today is Friday, October 11th. I'm Zach Ewing with Rod Walker, Luke Johnson, Matthew Paris. Today's our preview show for Saints versus Bucs. Sunday at the Superdome. All of our breakdown of the game and predictions are coming. First, want to let you know that the Saints Insider is sponsored by Bank Plus. Their banking decisions are actually made here in New Orleans by local bankers who know the community and take the time to know you. From small business to big business, home loans to bank anywhere technology, Bank Plus is here for New Orleans. Learn more at bankplus.net. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. Back home for the Saints, kind of desperation time for the Saints.
Yeah, I mean, look, like the back half of their schedule is still very favorable, but like they don't want to be putting themselves in the same position they have been for the last couple of years, where they have this really bad swoon in the middle of the season and they have to dig themselves out of it. So a win would be huge. I just think it's going to be really tough this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially obviously the headline of this game is that Spencer Rattler is starting at quarterback. Like an hour after we recorded Wednesday's pod, the Saints announced, is it going to be Rattler or Haener? Who should it be? And the Saints took all the drama out of the situation, which that might have been the most surprising thing, is that they didn't make us wait until Saturday or Sunday to find out.
Yeah,
right?
Normally we're sweating this thing out to the end, not figuring it out. So
yes, thank you. Yeah.
Props to Dennis Allen for coming out. We didn't even have to ask a question. I mean, he just told us. Like, he just got it out of the way, and it's good to see him do that.
Yeah, so Matt, this is just like obviously a rookie quarterback, injury-riddled offensive line. We're going to talk about all this, but it's not a good situation for the Saints.
No, and like I think fans are excited just because of the intrigue that Rattler brings, but in any other circumstance, you'd say a 3-game losing streak, your starting quarterback goes down for multiple weeks, it would be kind of panic time, but I don't know. We'll see how Rattler does, but I mean the Bucs are a tough opponent. They've played well this season, and I know they lost to Atlanta, but I think the Saints have their hands cut out for them.
Hands very full. Yeah, no doubt about it.
It says a lot about what the fans think about Derek Carr for them to be this excited about a starting quarterback.
It's this weird phenomenon. They're more excited about this game than they would be if Carr hadn't gotten hurt, and they're probably favored in the game. And It's crazy. Anyway, we're going to take a break. We'll continue our breakdown. We'll talk about the whole situation right after this.
Nice bike.
Thanks. Can I get it back before Saturday?
That might be tough.
Whoa. Is it just you?
For now, let's take a look.
Hi, strawberry mango.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go. Thank you. I'll take another one.
All right, so let's start our breakdown of Saints Bucs. As I mentioned, the Bucs are 3.5-point favorites in this game. Last week, if you had bet on it, it was Saints by 2.5. So Derek Carr being out has caused a 6-point swing in the spread. I don't know. We'll talk about that, but let's talk about the quarterback situation first. The Saints injuries. Carr is going to be obviously inactive for this game. That's our transaction segment. It's sponsored by Associated Grocers. Join our team and help support the success of local independent retail grocers. Apply today for available positions at Associated Grocers. And then for the first time this year, Luke, Spencer Rattler is going to be active. We were talking off the air a little bit about this decision. As soon as the leak was made by NFL Network that Carr was going to miss several weeks, you guys talked about it on Wednesday. It was immediately followed with a report that Rattler could get the nod to start, and those things don't happen by accident. Like at that point, I think the Saints knew. I personally was a little surprised that they went straight to Rattler, but the only conclusion can be, and you guys have seen more practice than I have, that he's shown something in practice that gives the Saints more confidence than they have in Jake Haener.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us alluded to this on Wednesday's show. The feeling that a lot of us have, that I'm assuming the Saints have, is that Spencer Rattler has a higher ceiling. He's capable of doing more than Jake Haener is. I think Haener is a really solid prospect at quarterback. There's a lot of things that he can do that you really like. He's a processor. He's accurate. He runs the offense. Everything's on time, on schedule. But I think Spencer has just a little bit more there that he's capable of. And when you can put together a game plan around those strengths, I think it allows you to do a lot more than if you were running a very similar game plan to what you would do with Derek Carr, except with a lesser player. if that makes sense. Especially considering where their run game is at, where the offensive line is at right now. It just seems to me that that's pretty clearly what this decision is based in. So you can build a game plan around Spencer Rattler's strengths, whereas with Haener, it's you're working around some of his limitations.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head. The rest of this injury report is not favorable, and it wouldn't be favorable if Derek Carr was starting or if Patrick Mahomes was starting. I mean, like the interior offensive line is decimated. What'd you guys say at one point in practice? They were lining up with Connor McGovern, Kyle Hergel, and Nick Saldiveri. Might not be the actual guys. I'm not saying those are the only healthy guys, but that's the point where we're at. Is that this rookie who got benched on Monday night and two guys who weren't even on the team at the beginning of the year were lining up with the first team. It's that and some defensive injuries and the fact that defense isn't playing very well. It's just a tough situation, period.
Yeah, and I feel like this is I don't know if it's a must-win, but it's about as close as you can get to a must-win. And I just don't like the circumstances for a rookie quarterback to have to go in there under these circumstances. And
a rookie quarterback making his NFL debut.
A fifth-round rookie quarterback. Like we're not talking about a really. He was the number one prospect coming out of high school. He was highly touted in that way, but tough situation.
Yeah, so I guess it's a no-lose situation for him, or well, I guess it's not. I mean, and I said this Wednesday. My concern is if it doesn't go well for Rattler, then you probably got a game 4 nights later. You may have to go back to Haener, and I don't know. I just think I think if you start with Haener and he fails, then you go to Rattler, and you take another. You're doing what you're going in the natural progression of how you should do it. But this way, I think it's putting the Saints in a tough situation if it doesn't go well.
Yeah,
and I think there's a chance it won't go well.
I definitely think there's a chance it won't go well. But I also think that you got to give yourself every chance to win the game. And if you think that this is the guy who gives you the best chance, then you got to go with him. And look, Jake Haener's a professional. He's been benched before, right? Or he lost a competition before. It's why he ended up at Fresno State, and it's why he ended up in the position to come to the Saints in the first place. So he'll get over it if they have to turn to him next week because Spencer is really ineffective or clearly not ready for the moment or gets hurt or whatever the case is. He'll get over it and he'll play, but like they have to go with the guy who's going to give them the best chance. If they think it's Rattler, they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Matt. You're working on a story that's going to publish on NOLA.com this afternoon. Like, there's this online phenomenon, this group of fans that really ever since Rattler was drafted that want him to be the guy, that see him as the future. What's the hashtag?
It's hashtag the agenda.
The agenda. Yeah, like, and it almost goes so far as to this crazy like notion that Spencer Rattler is better than Derek Carr now, which is clearly like the betting line moves 6 points. He's not better than Derek Carr, but the fans are really excited about this.
They are, and I don't know if they've talked. I think maybe part of it is they've talked themselves into it, but I think it's because the Saints really haven't had a young quarterback like this. I mean, I know they drafted Jake Haener last year, but Spencer Rattler has the prestige, even though he's a 5th-round pick. Like, there's a lot of ways you can talk yourself into Spencer Rattler, the pedigree, and the big arm, like that, his ability to scramble. Like, he's a fun player to watch, but it's just a matter of, like, the agenda is that they believe he's the future, and it's a lot to get invested in. If you want to hit the bell, it reminds me of Sam Howell in Washington, how people wanted to talk them into that and how maybe they should have kept Howell and not drafted Jaden Daniels. I don't think people are standing by that take anymore. And so, yeah, I'm interested to see, though. I do think Rattler could do some good things. I think one of the reasons he's getting the start that we haven't talked about is because he can kind of thrive in chaos. I mean, that was kind of his calling card in college, that he was sacked so many times, but yet kept bouncing back. And I don't think, sacks could be a quarterback stat, but I don't think they were in that case.
Yeah, I mean, he was sacked a ton. Again, bad offensive line in South Carolina, but that's going to be the case on Sunday, too. Saints fans, Associated Grocers is hiring. If you're looking to join a team dedicated to supporting independent retail grocers apply today. Your future starts here. Okay, moving into when the Saints have the ball as we begin our breakdown here. What's a bigger concern for you guys? That Spencer Rattler is, don't pardon the pun, rattled and comes out, kind of gun shy and afraid to do things, or that he is so confident that he starts squeezing the ball into windows that they shouldn't go and makes mistakes that way?
I don't think. Oh, go ahead.
I mean, I don't necessarily think this is an either or. I don't think I would be really surprised if he goes out there and he's clearly not ready for the moment. It's too big for him. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think all three of the quarterbacks they have in the building are confident guys. But I don't necessarily think that it's going to be like an overconfidence thing for him, where he's trying to make throws that he shouldn't because he has way too much belief in him. I mean, it's certainly a possibility, but I just don't think it like one of those two things is definitely going to happen. I think for me the biggest concern is this is going to be his first time going up against a first team defense in an NFL game. And he's basically doing it with a second team offensive line and his tackles. One of whom we spent a big chunk of the offseason worrying about whether he was going to be able to last out there in Trevor Penning. So I that is the big concern for me. It's going to be moving very fast, and he's not going to have a lot of great protection. The Saints haven't given up a lot of sacks this year, but they have been pressured an awful lot. And if the Saints can't get their run game going, which I think is going to be a struggle against a Tampa defense that traditionally is a very good run defense, and you're asking him to convert a lot of third and long situations, it's just going to be I think that to me is the most concerning part. It's not his confidence or lack thereof. I don't know. Do you have any?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think, confident. I mean, you talk to the players in the locker room, and that's kind of the first thing they talk about is his confidence and his moxie and his poise and all that. But for me, I just think he needs to get off to a good start. Like he can't come out there and like his first start in Oklahoma, I think he threw a pick against Tulane and like his very first pass. So I just think he needs to get off to just a decent start. He don't have to try to win the game. I mean, if the running game is doing fine, he'll probably be okay, not having to make these big plays. But if he comes out and tries to do too much, I think that can't be a problem. But I don't think he'll do that.
Go ahead, Matt.
I'll be interested to see how fast he processes things because, to your point, Luke, about New Orleans being pressured a lot but not having a lot of sacks, a lot of that was Derek Carr. Like, that guy is a master at getting the ball out fast, not really holding on to it too long. And I do think that's where you can kind of get concerned with the rookie is they hold the ball too long. Do they try and make something out of nothing? Like, I do think that is a little bit of an issue with Rattler's game because even in the preseason, you look at their performances, he was sacked 3 times versus Hayner's 1. Like, I do think he does have the tendency to hold the ball a little bit too long.
And that wasn't against a first-team defense. I mean, it's a preseason game. So this is going to be something different, totally different.
And to your point, if he doesn't get off to a good start, the other factor there is if you fall behind and you lose the ability of a running game, and Luke, you wrote about that this week, it doesn't matter whether Carr is hurt or not. They got to get the running game going.
Yeah, I mean, everything they do in this particular offense is based off of the run game. And as we've seen in the last 3 weeks, it was good for one half in the last 3 weeks against Atlanta when Taysom Hill was in the game. You take him out of the game, and it wasn't as good. It was not good at all against Philadelphia, and they had the season low in rushing attempts last week. And in those 3 games, their play-action game has been awful. They're like 9 of 16 for 65 yards, play-action passes, although they did throw a touchdown last week to Foster Moreau. Their screen game has been kind of non-existent. Honestly, like the only screens I can remember in the last couple of games are screens that were either blown up or led to turnovers. Derek Carr trying to spike a screen, having to get tipped up into the air by Matthew Judon and taken back for a pick 6. And then last week, I think they tried to run a screen on like a 3rd and 7 play. They got blown up for no gain or a loss late in the game in a 1-score game. So like when the run game isn't going, all that stuff that they literally build everything around it is ineffective, or they can't go to it as much. So like if they get in a situation where Spencer is throwing the ball 30, 35 times, it's probably not going to be good unless he's throwing the ball that much because the Saints defense is dominating and they're controlling the football much the way Kansas City did against them last week. So, it's to me, it is absolutely imperative they get that going. I just don't know if they can. I don't know if they got the horses to do it right now.
Yeah, that's really the thing. And people say the Saints offense doesn't seem in rhythm. Well, it's not in rhythm because you're not running the ball. And if you're not running the ball, you're always in 3rd and 8.
I looked this up. The first 2 weeks, they had 3rd and 4 or less on almost 60% of their third downs. It's like 58%. And in the last 3 weeks, when they've struggled to run the ball, it's 3rd and 4 on 44%. So it's like a decrease of almost 15% on your 3rd and shorts. And that leads to drives ending early. It leads you to punting a lot more. Your time of possession gets out of whack. You can't go to as many plays because you're not running as many plays. You can't set things up to hit them later. It's such a huge part of what they do. And I think that while Alvin has played good enough throughout this stretch, it's the holes haven't been there. I mean, it looks like a completely different game watching those first 2 weeks versus the last 3, just in terms of what is there and what's available.
Yeah. Kendry Miller playing this week, we think? Alvin Kamara's been banged up. Is there any possibility of that?
I'd probably be a little surprised. I think they probably saving him for the short week game.
Yeah. Makes sense. Not saying he would start or anything, but just take a little bit of the load off of those guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would be surprised if they activate him off IR. Is what I'm saying.
And then the other question before we move on to the defense, Rod, would be could this be a squeaky wheel game for Chris Olave? Spencer Rattler said in the preseason he loved throwing the ball to Olave, and Olave's brother was on Twitter last week saying, "Oh, he only got 2 targets in the first half." That is a real thing sometimes. I don't know if the Saints can afford to do that, but he's also their best receiver.
Yeah, I think, and the Buccaneers defense, I mean, they, like you watched that Atlanta game, they gave up a lot of passes in the middle. And, I think the Saints will probably try to take advantage of that. And if they can, it'll help. But, yeah, I mean, Olave had, what, those 2 targets last? 1 target? 2 targets? 2 targets last.
He had 1 on the opening drive.
Yeah. I mean, he's a guy
he got his next one till late in the fourth
I mean, you
quarter.
got to get Chris Olave the ball. I mean, you need to get somebody else involved. I mean, it's been Chris, Kamara, and Rashid mostly. But he definitely will need to play a big part in this offense for the Saints to have a chance, I would feel.
Yeah, the Bucs gave up 509 yards passing their last time out. So it is there, although Antoine Winfield missed that game. He's been limited in practice this week.
Their
star safety.
I bet he plays.
Yeah, so if he's
Coming
back,
off
that's
a long break.
Yeah, big boost for Tampa Bay. All right, Saints on defense, when the Bucs have the ball, and the Bucs looked real good in that Thursday night game against Atlanta as well. And you alluded to this earlier. Not only are the Saints on a short week, Tampa Bay is on a long break. They're on a mini bye. They played Thursday night. And the Saints defense was on the field for 80 plays Monday night, I believe it was. So that's a concern too. And this defense has looked really pedestrian.
Yeah. I mean, especially between the 20s, right?
It's Pat Mahomes. I mean, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, but it's it was Pat Mahomes. It was. I don't know. I struggle to really like put my finger on this defense because they have only given up 6 touchdowns in 5 games. Right, that's pretty good. They've lost the game where they didn't give up a defensive touchdown. They lost one where they had shut out the opposing team through 3 quarters and into the 4th quarter. Last week I think was far and away their worst defensive performance, and they still only gave up 2 touchdowns in the game. So I'm a little. I think a lot of their problems are fixable. I think they're going to get Willie Gay back this week, which is going to help offset the loss of Pete Werner, who I'm assuming is not going to play, because their fill-ins at linebacker were clearly a big drop-off from those top 3 that they have. I still think their secondary is playing at a high level, despite a couple mix-ups or missed tackles. Missed tackles, I think, is a big problem for them right now.
PIs.
PIs, that's...
It's a Paulson Adebo problem.
Well, it's a factor of how they play the game. I think that's going to be something they either have to live with or ask them to play a different way. So this is a long way of saying that. I don't think they're necessarily as big as a mess as they looked last week. I think they have some potential. I think first of all they match up well with Tampa's built around those stars on the outside. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, the rookie receiver, is really good. I think their tight end is really solid, K. Dotton. But I think maybe outside of the tight end stuff, the Saints match up well with those types of teams. And I think the Buccaneers' offensive line is a little vulnerable right now outside of Tristan Wirfs. I think they've given up a good bit of pressure. I think the Saints have the guys who can maybe get the job done there. And Baker Mayfield is just like a really volatile quarterback. He'll give you a ball or two every game that you can turn into a turnover. So I think there's a chance that they look a lot better this week, even considering the fact they played 80 plays last week and they're coming off a short week and Tampa's got the long rest. I think they come out and play much better this week than they did last week.
I thought Tampa ran the ball, though, really well against Atlanta. I think they had 160 yards.
Which has been a problem for them.
Right.
Yeah.
But they were able to, get some stuff going on the ground. And what is Rashad White?
Rashad White.
Rashad White and Bucky Irving.
Irving, yeah.
So they had like a kind of a two-headed monster there. I think Rashad was he was limited in practice yesterday, I think. But
No, he was held out yesterday. But I think
Oh,
the
he just
Bucs,
held out, okay.
the Bucs do that thing where they have a guy practice on Wednesday and then they rest him on Thursday.
Okay.
They've done that throughout the time I've covered
yeah.
it.
But yeah, my point was they did run the ball really well against the Falcons in their last game, and if they can do that, I think it can create some problems for this Saints defense.
Well, while we're on the topic of Bucs practice, Rod, you talked to him on Wednesday. The Bucs are practicing in New Orleans this week because of Hurricane Milton that hit the Tampa area on Wednesday. They've been in New Orleans all week, and so they've been practicing at Tulane. What did you glean from talking to them and just sort of the strange situation they're in?
We've obviously covered the Saints in those same situations, and you listen to the Bucs, and they were saying like a lot of the same things that the Saints say when they have to evacuate. They talk about how they're bonding, they're more locked in, less distractions because you're in hotel rooms. The Bucs got their families here, they got their pets here, like everybody's in New Orleans, and they talked about some of the same things that the Saints talked about in Hurricane Ida when they were in the Fort Worth area. You want to win for the city, so they're like just really locked in on that message that you always hear when teams are in these kind of situations. And that was like I talked to Baker Mayfield, Zion McCollum, and Mike Evans. That's kind of what everybody's message was. So they want to win for the city of Tampa. So sometimes that works.
Yeah.
The Saints came out and beat Green Bay 37-3 and
38-3.
38-3
In Jacksonville.
In Jacksonville, yeah, that's Jameis's first start, I guess. But they're going to try to rally around that.
Matt, if you're the Bucs, how do you attack the Saints here?
You throw to Mike Evans. I know Marshawn Lattimore and him have a history, and Lattimore's done well against that, but the guy's still really productive. Chris Godwin, don't know if this is continued now that we're kind of more into the season, but he had earned the majority of targets at least through the first 3 weeks at a high rate. It seems like he's going there, but I think the Bucs, you got to attack the situational stuff that New Orleans has really been having trouble stopping. They're giving up 40% of the third downs. I think they're also 4 of 10 on fourth down, maybe. Anyway, the Saints have struggled on third down, giving up explosive plays. The pass rush hasn't gotten home. And the Buccaneers are kind of running an offense that has given New Orleans trouble. Just in terms of, you look at these Shanahan offenses, they went against one.
This is McVay offense.
McVay, yes.
But they're
Shanahan, McVay,
branches
yes.
the same tree.
They're cousins.
Yeah, Cousins did it as well, but I think
I wasn't talking about Kirk Cousins. I said the offenses are cousins of each other.
Oh, sorry.
That was funny.
It was great, though.
That's you meant, yeah. Anyway, I think the Bucs are good. I actually kind of worry about this defense. You made really good points that the secondary is still solid, but they just haven't really been able to put it all together at the right time, and I'm worried about this pass rush. They're generating pressures, but it doesn't come up in crucial times to where you need to stop, and I think teams can move the ball on the Saints, and I just think that's going to be a problem.
One thing I want to bring up, if you remember that Bucs game from in the dome from last year. The Bucs converted something like 6 or 7 3rd and 9+ against the Saints.
This was like 3-on-1 drive.
Yeah.
Was a big drive.
Yeah, and a lot of those were Baker Mayfield dancing out of sacks, extending plays, finding guys downfield. And Godwin, I think if I remember right, Godwin might have had a big game in that one. And the interesting thing about him now is they've decided to move him back to the slot. So we'll see. I'm anticipating we're going to see a lot of Marshawn Lattimore traveling with Mike Evans. This will be the first time this year that they've actually traveled him with a receiver. They haven't done it yet. They didn't do it against Devontae Smith, and he's probably the only other big name receiver they've faced this year. And we're probably going to get to see a lot of Alontae Taylor on Chris Godwin. I think those are going to be fun matchups this week.
Yeah.
But the third down stuff and Mayfield's escapability, I mean, that was a big problem last week against Kansas City. They brought a lot of pressure, and it didn't matter. It's like we weren't able to actually bring him home or get it home.
Yeah, I that's the thing. The Saints have a bunch of pressures and not a lot of sacks. They're not turning them in. And part of that is they faced Jalen Hurts, they faced Patrick Mahomes, but it was kind of the same way against Kirk Cousins, who's a statue back there. So you've got to be able to get these guys down.
Yeah. And Dennis Allen will push against that, and he's like, the whole point of pressure is affecting the quarterback, and yes, that stuff makes sense. But if you're affecting the quarterback and he's getting the ball out, then that doesn't matter anymore. And then you actually really do want the big negative plays, the drive killing plays, the strip sacks. They've had a couple strip sacks this year. I think 3.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Just got to get the ball.
Yeah.
Okay. Quick note on special teams before we take a break. The Bucs did replace their punter last week. I somehow missed that for third. Jake Camargo got
no longer
benched. Trenton Gill punted for them Thursday night. And there's actually some Bucs fans who were upset. They had the ball in field goal range, and they had the holding penalty and got pushed back. This is before the Falcons' game-tying drive. And Gill's punt was from the 41 or something, and it went into the end zone for a touchback, which helped the Bucs on that drive. So I don't know who's going to punt. I mean, he's been a healthy and active, Camarda has, for the last 2 weeks, I think. So we'll see what happens. And also Blake Grupe needs to make his extra points. That's my other special teams note.
Well, it was funny. Somebody actually asked Darren Rizzi about that yesterday, and he said that was not at all remotely related to the injury he was kind of dealing with the last couple of weeks, where he was limited, I think, on the practice report before the Kansas City game. And he was out there hitting 61-yarders in pregame warm-ups at GHA Field.
It's just
at
like a
Arrowhead
focus
Stadium.
issue. I don't know what it is.
I don't know. Those short ones have given him problems. He might have been perfect on extra points last year, but obviously missed the two 29. Inside of 30 yards.
Doinked a short field goal this year already too. Doinked it in, but
yeah. It's weird. It's those are supposed to be, as close to automatic as you're going to get in the NFL.
Yeah. All right, we got to take one more break. We'll be back. Our keys to the game and our Bucs Saints predictions coming up on the Saints Insider right after this.
There's no better place to parlay than Caesars Sportsbook. Parlay Builder gives you all the game day action from all across the league. Multiple games, legs, and props, all in one spot. It's so quick and easy, you can keep your focus on the games and your nachos. Or if you're focusing on one game, remember, you can place your same game parlays live during the action. Caesars Sportsbook, the only sportsbook app with Caesars rewards.
And you are watching the Saints Insider podcast. It's Friday, October 11th. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the like button, subscribe, all that good stuff. Tell your friends about us, especially after we make these picks that you're sure to love for Saints Bucs, which we're about to do. First, we're going to do keys to the game. Matt Paris, if you got to boil it down to something, what do you got?
Protect Spencer Rattler. That interior of the offensive line has been very porous, and so they just need to give him enough time, and the Saints need to take advantage of Rattler's skill set and get him on the move and do everything it can to mitigate that offensive line.
All right, Luke?
I don't know if this really qualifies as a key, but I think Clint Kubiak needs to get really creative this week. I don't think they can go into this with like their standard offensive game plan and say, Spencer, you run it. Like they gotta make up for some of the guys they're missing here, especially with a rookie quarterback in there. Get creative, try some weird stuff, throw it out there at the Bucs, make them adjust on the fly. And then the secondary one would be they've got to find a way to keep Mayfield contained. And they can't let him dance out of sacks the way they did last year and go make big plays down the field.
Yeah, I was about to say sack Baker Mayfield at least 3 times. That's my sack. That's my key. Rod?
I guess I could always go to the go-to if they got to run the ball well, but we've said that every week, so I'm going to try to go over there. But,
it is true.
I think the defense probably needs to get some turnovers and give the Saints some short fields and make it easier for Spencer there. I mean, because I don't know if this offense is going to be able to just, drive 80 yards on the Bucs, but I think if the defense can get some turnovers, it can kind of make things easier.
All right. Prediction time, Saints Insider, Saints versus Bucs, noon Sunday at the Superdome. I'm pulling up my phone because Jeff Duncan, who we saved for his Saints pick last week, he's not here today. He picked the Saints again, folks, 23-16, and I made him give a statement to back that up because it seems a little off the wall. So here's his statement. He said, less than a year ago, I sat in the press box at Raymond James Stadium and watched the Saints dominate this same Bucs team on its home field. The defense shut down the Bucs run game and forced 3 turnovers. After a subpar performance against the Chiefs, I expect the unit to bounce back and win the game for the Saints, making things easier for Spencer Rattler. And in all honesty, that's the path, right? The defense plays well, the crowd gets into it, Rattler does just enough. That's the path. I think we can agree on that.
That's the path.
That is the path.
All right.
Unless you're pushing the agenda, and then the path is Spencer Rattler throws 6 touchdowns.
Hashtag the agenda, 375 yards, 6 TDs, 2 rushing. All right. But do we agree with the pick, Rod?
No, we did not agree with the pick. I picked the Bucs 20-13, and actually, when I thought about it, I think I probably would go up to like 27-13. I don't think it's going to be quite as close as I predicted.
You don't. So you think it'll be more than 7
I think it'll be
points?
more than 7 points. Yes.
Okay, so 20-13. I think that might be we might have a confirmation of that pick later on. I went a little higher scoring. I have 26-17 Bucs. I do think Rattler's going to have his moment. Like he's going to throw a nice ball or set up a touchdown or throw a touchdown pass or something and get everybody excited. I also think he's going to make a couple of mistakes. You're going to get kind of a mixed bag, and I don't like the way the Saints defense is playing right now to keep him in this thing.
I, like Rod, also picked 20-13 Bucs. I think it'd be criminal of me, and maybe we can lock Duncan up after this. But to expect the Saints to win when they're starting a rookie quarterback in his NFL debut, when they're probably going to be missing 2, if not more, starters on the offensive line. They're going to be missing one of their most important offensive players in Taysom Hill, and you're asking the rookie to go step into that situation against a pretty good Bucs team and get a win. I mean, they're gonna need an absolutely lights out day from their defense, like we were saying earlier. I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, it's a tough spot. Also, the gambling podcast I listen to calls it the Widowmaker.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's
Thursday
like the Bucs,
rest against Monday rest.
The Bucs have 10 days to prepare for this game, even if they're in New Orleans and they're away from home and they're dealing with the stress of the hurricane. They're preparing for the game, and they have been for 4 days longer than the Saints have. So, and that's an extra 4 days to rest your body. It's an extra 4 days to digest film. That's all that stuff. There's literally nothing working in the Saints' favor in this game except for the fact that it's being played in the Superdome.
And the Bucs are coming off a game that, talking to them, they feel like they let that game slip away against the Falcons, and they're like really kind of, you can tell that they want to.
Teams never lose after letting one slip away against the Falcons. Wait a second. Yeah, but actually, before you conspiracy theorists start with this, Goodell hates the Saints and all this stuff, the Seahawks were in the same spot last week when they lost to the Giants. They were in this Widowmaker Thursday versus Monday rest, and the Saints have the advantage of it when they play the Chargers. The Chargers play the Monday before, and the Saints play Thursday, so they actually get it the other way around in a couple of weeks. So just pointing that out. Matt, bring us home.
Did he give a score, by the way?
Yeah, 20-13.
We have 2 20-13s.
Okay, I have 21-16 the Bucs. I'm also going to predict Spencer Rattler's stat line here.
I love this. Go ahead.
173 passing yards.
You don't want him to go. You don't want me to kind of.
Luke's opening the notes app here. Yeah.
No, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions.
173. And how many rushing yards? We got any rushing yards?
48.
How many times sacked?
5.
You said 48 rushing
48
yards?
rushing yards and 5 times sacked. The passing stats all compute. The rushing is a little wild. All right, we'll see.
173, one tutty, 2 picks,
INTs.
5 sacks
48
and 48
rushing yards,
You said 5 sacks?
and 5 sacks.
5 times
This
sacks.
is I love how bold you're being here. Okay, it is noted. You are buying Clancy's.
All right, that's going to do it for our show today. Our thanks to Norman Bell, our producer. For Rod Walker, Luke Johnson, and Matthew Paris, I'm Zach Ewing. Thanks for watching the Saints Insider.